Madam Speaker, I beg to move that Parliament approve the financial policy of the Government for the financial year 1st April 2013 to 31st March 2014. Our budget for fiscal year 2012 is expected to have a surplus exceeding what we had estimated a year ago. We had estimated an overall budget balance of $1.3 billion, or 0.4% of GDP. We now expect a higher surplus of $3.9 billion, or 1.1% of GDP. This additional surplus was due entirely to higher revenues from stamp duties and vehicle-related taxes. These are short-term increases in revenues, which we cannot expect to be sustained. The government expects Singapore's GDP growth in 2013 to remain modest at between 1 to 3%. This is comparable to the 1.3% growth last year and down from the 5.2% growth in 2011. While part of the slowdown is due to global cyclical factors which affected sectors such as manufacturing, it is also to be expected as our economy matures and our labor force grows more slowly. In fact, our economy has been at full capacity since our strong recovery from the global financial crisis. This is why we have virtually full employment. It is also why wage costs and many other costs, like rentals, have been going up. Rising costs remain a concern for both businesses and households. The pass-through of higher business costs into consumer prices, together with the sharp increases in COE prices, has kept upward pressure on CPI inflation in the last 2 years. Household incomes have risen in 2012 and over the last 5 years. Adjusted for inflation, the median Singaporean household saw income per member grow by 14% over the last 5 years cumulatively. The median Singaporean household saw income per member grow by 14% over the last 5 years cumulatively. Lower income households, those at the 20th percentile, also saw real income per member grow by 10% in the last 5 years. And if you exclude imputed rentals on owner-occupied homes, which do not involve actual spending by households, both the median and 20th percentile households have in fact experienced growth of incomes of 19% in real terms over the 5 years. This reflects both higher individual wages as well as greater employment opportunities, part-time and full-time. However, many Singaporeans who work in jobs at the lower rungs of the income ladder, especially cleaners, waiters, and security guards, have not fared as well. They have been able to get jobs easily, but have seen little or no rise in their real incomes over the last 5 years. These jobs should be paid better, and our schemes will help ensure that they are. For cleaners, the government is working with NTUC and the business community to equip them better and to uplift their pay through the recently introduced progressive wage model. We will be doing likewise for security guards. The budget will also introduce further measures to support our workers, including those with the lowest wages. Slowing or stagnating incomes are a real challenge for economies around the world, many economies around the world. It has happened not only in the advanced economies like the United States, but also in Asian countries that are in the same league as Singapore. The chart that I am showing refers to the Asian NIEs, the newly industrializing countries in Asia, Hong Kong, South Korea, Singapore, together with Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan, together with Singapore. It looks at median households, and for Singapore, we look at the median Singaporean household. The median Singaporean household has seen its income grow in real terms twice as fast, or more than twice as fast, as that in Hong Kong. South Korea and Taiwan have seen little or negative growth in real household incomes. We do not set our goals based on whether our incomes do better than in any other country. Many of them, in fact, have strengths that we lack in Singapore. But their experiences provide a sense of perspective. They illustrate the realities of the highly competitive world that every country now faces. We cannot change that reality, but it means that we have to work harder, both through our economic and social strategies, to help Singaporeans improve their lives and build a truly inclusive society. Many Singaporeans, through our Singapore Conversation platforms, have been sharing their hopes for Singapore, the kind of home we want to build for our families and our children. There has been a rich diversity of views, but a common set of aspirations is emerging, a common vision of the future that Singaporeans want. A home with a strong Singaporean identity and sense of belonging, a Singapore with a robust and vibrant economy, and with good jobs that enable a more fulfilling pace of life. A home with strong families, and where our seniors can age with dignity. A society that takes care of the disadvantaged. A Singapore with affordable living. A society with a greater sense of togetherness, and where the government and the people have a more collaborative relationship. This is the Singapore that we want to build together. The government is making major moves to support this endeavor. Since 2010, we have embarked on major steps to transform our economy so as to create better jobs and allow for a better pace and quality of life. We are also making important shifts in social policies, as announced in last year's budget, to foster a fair and inclusive society. We will need to make further moves so that by the end of this decade, we will have a better Singapore, a better future for all Singaporeans. First, we have pressing challenges in housing and transport. The government will spare no effort in resolving these problems. We want to reduce the cost of housing relative to the income of young Singaporeans. Prices in the HDB resale market and private market have risen too rapidly in the cycle that began as we recovered from the 2009 global economic crisis. We have taken major steps to cool the housing market. We have also ramped up the supply of HDB flats, which will help first-time buyers book their flats faster, as well as ease prices in the resale market. And we have increased supply of private housing through government land sales. The Minister for National Development will speak more in the COS about these immediate challenges, as well as how we can ensure affordable, quality housing for Singaporeans over the longer term. We have to make many improvements in public transport. Congestion and waiting times are a daily problem for Singaporeans. We are ramping up bus capacity, especially feeder services, to improve frequency and add new routes. We are accelerating the rollout of the additional 800 buses that we made provisions for last year. In addition, the Land Transport Authority will be tendering out routes to private operators. Our rail network will expand by more than 50% by 2021. That is still 8 years away. But in the meantime, we will see improvements that will help relieve congestion. Parts of the downtown line will start operating from the end of this year, and new trains will be added to existing lines from next year. We will also introduce other measures to reduce crowding, including significantly enhanced incentives for commuters who travel during the shoulder periods before and after the morning peak hour. The Minister for Transport will talk about these measures in the Committee of Supply. While we fix these immediate problems in housing and transport, we have to press on with our priorities to help Singaporeans have a better quality of life over the medium to long term. We have to shift gears for an economy and society that is in transition. We are no longer a developing economy, but we have not achieved the levels of productivity and incomes of an advanced economy. At the same time, our own workforce is growing more slowly and is gradually getting older. We must make every effort to achieve quality growth, growth that is achieved mainly through innovation and higher productivity, and growth that will benefit all Singaporeans, our children, working families, our elderly and disabled. Our strategies for achieving quality growth and an inclusive society are in fact tied inextricably together. Our strategies for achieving quality growth and an inclusive society are bound up together and are one and the same. Raising productivity is not just our most important economic priority, but enables us to have a better society. Higher productivity is the only sustainable way to raise incomes for ordinary Singaporeans and provide jobs for that give people a sense of responsibility and empowerment. Higher productivity is also necessary for us to shorten working hours over time and allow Singaporeans to enjoy a better work-life balance. Our society is also facing the pressures of widening income disparities. This is happening in cities globally and in Asia, but it matters more to us because Singapore is not just a city, but a nation. We must take further steps to temper inequality. We also want to do more to enable our seniors to have a sense of economic security and fulfillment in their retirement years. On both economy and society, therefore, we need to shift our thinking. In government, where we are reshaping policies and driving new initiatives, especially to sustain social mobility and strengthen support for older Singaporeans. In the business community, which has to innovate and adjust to the permanent reality of a tight labor market. In our society at large, where we have to accord ordinary workers not just better pay, but better respect. In the community, with non-profits and other voluntary groups pursuing the causes we all believe in, and working with an active partner in government. And for all of us as individuals, to do our best to improve and to contribute to our country in our own ways. We are restructuring our economy. We began this in earnest in 2010 by tightening foreign worker inflows, supporting enterprises in their efforts to upgrade operations and improve productivity, and investing in our workers by heavily subsidizing their training in every skill. We need to intensify this economic restructuring and skills upgrading so as to achieve quality growth. Although wages are going up in a tight labor market, productivity has lagged. If we do not do better in raising productivity, we will be caught in a situation where businesses lose competitiveness and wages eventually stagnate. Both workers and businesses will be worse off. We must help our SME sector revitalize itself. There are, however, wide divergences in efficiency amongst SMEs, even in the same industries. Restructuring will unfortunately lead to some businesses being winnowed out. But the end result must be a vibrant and sustainable SME sector. Every support must be provided to help the businesses which bring in more efficient techniques and service models so that they can grow in a tight labor market and, where possible, make their mark internationally. There are already many examples of SMEs transforming themselves in every sector. For example, in furniture manufacturing, a mature industry. Local firms are training multi-skilled employees, relocating manpower-intensive activities, developing unique brands, unique Singapore brands, and carving a niche for themselves in overseas markets. To make this economic transition, we must also harness the value of older Singaporeans and design jobs suited for them, as well as for other potential employees who are unable to work regular full-time jobs, regular full-time schedules. Flexible work practices must become more common, enabling employees to structure their work so that they have time for their families or for personal development like part-time courses. We should also make it possible for more employees to have the option of telecommuting from home or working from smart work centers near their homes, like what they have in Amsterdam and Seoul. The government will work closely with businesses in these efforts. We are also taking major steps to ensure a fair and more inclusive society. First, to sustain social mobility. Meritocracy alone will not assure us of this. We therefore want to do more, starting from early in our children's lives to give the best leg up to those who start off with a disadvantage. We cannot change the fact that children have different family backgrounds that bring very different advantages and disadvantages. But we want to find every way at the preschool and primary school levels to help our children from poorer and less stable families to develop confidence and the self-belief that gives them aspirations of their own, and to help them to catch up when they fall behind. Find every way to help them to catch up when they fall behind. And we will provide pathways to develop every skill and ability so that every child can discover his strengths as he grows up and can do well. Second, we must do more to mitigate inequality. We are making our fiscal system more progressive by tilting our taxes and benefits in favor of the lower and middle income groups. Currently, a lower income older worker receives a significant top-up of income through Workfare each year. A middle income family with a child in childcare gets subsidies of $4,800 each year. If the child is in university, he can receive more than $8,500. This is for a middle income family. Bursary support in the course of his studies. And get a subsidized government loan to pay off the remaining fees and cover study expenses. Children from low-income families receive much more from childcare all the way through to ITE Poly University. Singaporeans with disabilities now receive substantially greater support, both when young, through early intervention under EPIC, as well as adults, where we provide a substantial incentive through the special employment credit for firms to employ them so that they can contribute and lead more independent lives. An older Singaporean in need of long-term care can receive subsidies of $870 per month for home-based care or $1,200 per month if he is in a nursing home, following the changes we introduced last year. Those who need more help will get it through Medifund. We will take further significant steps in this budget towards strengthening social mobility and increasing the progressivity and fairness of our system. In particular, with enhancements to Workfare, a low-wage worker above 55 years old would receive a top-up of his pay of up to 30%. Workfare would add 30% to his pay. This is in addition to what his employer can receive through the special employment credit and the new wage credit scheme to be introduced in this year's budget, which will encourage his employer to up his pay. While raising incomes is the best way to help lower and middle income Singaporeans cope with rising costs, this budget will also include measures to help them more immediately. The most significant support will go to older Singaporeans to help them with medical costs. Taking all our measures together, including those which will be announced in this year's budget, taking the measures that we've introduced previously together with those in this year's budget, we are providing substantial benefits to lower and middle income Singaporeans. The full picture can be seen if we look at benefits over a lifetime, starting from a young couple's needs when they first have children to the time they get old and need other types of help, especially with their healthcare costs. In total, over a lifetime, a young low-income couple with 2 children can expect to receive more than $600,000 in benefits in real terms, looking at 2013 prices Adjusting for inflation, it amounts to $600,000 in today's dollars. This comes from subsidies and means-tested benefits in a range of areas: the children's education, housing, healthcare, workfare, the GST voucher, the permanent GST voucher, and other schemes. $600,000 in benefits over a lifetime in real terms, adjusted for inflation. This is much more than we used to provide in the past. In the last decade alone, we have more than doubled the lifetime benefits in real terms for such families. When we take into account all the taxes that such low-income families will pay, mainly GST, they will get back far more in benefits. In fact, they will get back more than $5 in benefits for every dollar in taxes paid. That's the way the system stands. However, today's generation of older Singaporeans will not benefit as much as younger Singaporeans from the enhancements in Workfare and CPF and other schemes. We want to do more for this senior generation of Singaporeans who worked over the years, worked over the decades, often with low pay, to build a better future for their children. They made today's Singapore possible. We will do more for them. The government is reviewing the system of healthcare financing and some other schemes to help them in their retirement years. Finally, the budget will make significant investments to nurture the sports and arts, which play a growing role in enriching life in Singapore. Over the next 5 years, we will invest 30% more in sports programs and more than double our investments to develop regional and community-level sports facilities. The government will also create a new cultural donation matching fund to provide dollar-for-dollar matching for donations to arts and culture. In short, we are building a better Singapore, a more inclusive and caring society with an innovative and dynamic economy so that Singaporeans can have better opportunities and more fulfilling lives. Let me go on to the first major thrust of the budget, to intensify our efforts to achieve quality growth. In other words, growth that is driven by sustained productivity improvement rather than manpower growth. Productivity gains are not new to Singapore. With the exception of the last decade, our productivity growth rates were well above the norm, even as our labor force grew significantly. In 1980, we were what the World Bank called a middle-income developing country. However, our productivity levels were about a third of most advanced countries then. In 1980, our productivity was about 1/3 of the most advanced countries at that time. 3 decades on, our productivity level is about 70% of today's global productivity leaders, countries like the United States, Japan, Switzerland, and Sweden. That's a significant change in 3 decades, moving from 30% of the global leaders to 70%. Our overall productivity level is now, in fact, above Hong Kong's, although it used to be significantly below Hong Kong in the early days, certainly below Hong Kong in 1980. We have achieved this by bringing in leading global companies at each stage of our development with the technologies to create better jobs for Singaporeans, upgrading local enterprises, including those in mature industries that were once thought to be fading out, like the food manufacturing and marine industries, or furniture, which I mentioned earlier, and above all, by building a strong education system and improving the skills of our workers. However, we must now go through a new phase of transformation. First, we need to catch up from a decade of slow productivity growth. Second, we also have much room to catch up with the global leaders in each of our sectors. Third, we must also reduce the wide gaps in efficiency between the different sectors of our economy. In particular, our manufacturing and transport sectors are well ahead in productivity compared to other economies in Asia, except Japan. Although we are behind the global leaders, manufacturing and transport are well ahead of most economies in Asia, except Japan. But in construction, our productivity is about 1/5 below that of Hong Kong and Korea, and much further below that of Japan and the other international leaders in construction. In many services industries, like F&B and retail, we are also about 1/5 below Hong Kong. We must therefore press ahead and upgrade technologies, skills, and expertise across our economy in this decade so that we can be a truly advanced economy. The 2 to 3% per annum target for productivity growth that we had set after the weak decade until 2009 is ambitious, but we must make every effort to achieve it. That will bring us, at the end of this decade, much closer to where the most advanced economies are today. There's also another important reason why we have to step up productivity improvement. If we do not succeed in this new phase of transformation, we will lose ground to emerging cities in Asia, which are catching up quickly. We can lose even the good jobs that we want to retain in Singapore. Several Chinese coastal cities, for example, are catching up in industrial robotics so as to compete with German and Japanese manufacturers. We slowed down the increase in our foreign workforce in 2012 compared to the previous 2 years, but it was still rather high, 67,000 workers, a net inflow of 67,000 in 2012. Slower than the previous years, but still too high. However, most of the growth in the foreign workforce was seen in just 2 areas of the economy: the construction and process industries and the services sector. In manufacturing, there was in fact a slight decline in the total stock of foreign workers in 2012. The construction and process industries, with most workers coming in at the work permit level, accounted for about half of the total increase in the foreign workforce. This was partly due to the ramp-up in infrastructure projects, but also because productivity in these sectors remains weak. In services, there has been continued rapid growth of the foreign workforce, especially as sparse employees. Overall, the total number of employment pass holders declined last year. The stock figure declined last year. This was in part a result of the tightening of MOM's eligibility criteria, especially for Q1 pass holders, those at the lower levels of the EP passes, so as to raise the quality profile at the lower end of the professional workforce as our economy restructures. Let me now explain our foreign worker strategies as we go forward. Foreign workers now comprise 33.6% of our total workforce. The government had in 2010 accepted the Economic Strategies Committee's recommendation that we moderate the growth of the foreign workforce so as to avoid its proportion of the total workforce increasing significantly beyond 1/3. While our mix of policies must allow for foreign worker numbers to fluctuate in the course of the business cycle, or when we have major infrastructural projects underway, as we do currently, the proportion of foreign workers in the total workforce should not increase indefinitely. Our foreign worker policies remain guided by this objective. We have to make further adjustments so that we can continue moderating the growth of the foreign workforce. But the adjustments will not be across the board. The adjustments will reflect the circumstances of each sector. First, we will make selective, further dependency ratio ceiling cuts for sectors where there has continued to be significant growth in foreign worker numbers and where productivity levels are still well behind international productivity leaders. Second, we will increase levies for all sectors to ensure that businesses continue to reduce dependence on foreign manpower and improve productivity. The levy increases will be sharper for firms that are most dependent on foreign workers. However, while there will be significant levy increases for less skilled workers, we will not increase levies for skilled workers in most sectors. We will not increase it after the previously announced rates for July 2013 kick in. So most companies will not need to pay a higher levy if they rely on skilled work permit holders. Third, we will encourage companies to proactively develop the talent and skills of our Singaporean workforce and reward them fairly. We cannot pause in restructuring our economy. We cannot cut off the flow of foreign workers abruptly, but we have to slow its growth. We are therefore making these further adjustments, and we have to do so in full knowledge of the difficulties they will pose for many of our companies. There's been extensive feedback from our businesses and associations about the challenges that employers face in finding local workers. And as everyone knows too, there are many sectors such as construction, marine and process industries, and even some services industries, where there will remain a significant shortage of local workers and where we will continue to need foreign workers for some time to come. However, the basic reality is that these sectors which are the most dependent on foreign workers are also the ones which are furthest behind international standards of productivity and which account for the lag in productivity in our overall economy. The tightening of foreign worker policies is therefore aimed mainly at reducing reliance on manpower, not merely on replacing foreign workers with locals. That is the only way we can significantly improve productivity and avoid an indefinite increase in the ratio of foreigners in our workforce. Further, within the services sector, industries like F&B and retail that have been the most reliant on foreign workers have also seen low wages and low wage growth for local workers in certain jobs. Waiters are an example. We cannot carry on in the same way. If we pause now and postpone the restructuring of these industries, we will face the same problems of low productivity, low wages, and low profitability in these industries in the future. The problem does not merely lie in individual enterprises, but in the structure of industry. In construction and services, there are many small firms working very hard to survive and to attract local employees. Sometimes the owners themselves double up as workers. Many find it difficult to scale up to the point where they can invest in significant productivity improvements or build up and retain a pool of skilled employees. F&B, food and beverage, is a good example of this fragmented industry structure. The problem has not been that of inadequate workforce growth. The F&B workforce has in fact increased by 1/3 over the last 5 years, with foreign workers making up half of the increase. However, there has also been a rapid growth in the number of F&B establishments. Many new F&B firms are formed each year, and many also exit, but the total number has grown. With our local workforce now growing more slowly, and as we are at full employment, many firms find it increasingly difficult to attract local workers. The structure of some of our industries will inevitably have to change, given our tight labor market. Consolidation is part and parcel of restructuring. While efficient enterprises and those who develop stronger brands will grow, others may eventually downsize, switch to new business lines, or move parts of their operations abroad. This is indeed how productivity has advanced in the most developed economies, not just by individual enterprises innovating and upgrading, but also through the freeing up of space in the industry for more dynamic enterprises to obtain workers and grow. The government cannot decide which firms should succeed or which employers within an industry should get more workers while others get less. Only the market can decide that. But the government can and will actively support all SMEs that are willing to upgrade so that they can retain their roots in Singapore and grow. The restructuring of our economy must result eventually in a dynamic and re-energized SME scene. That must be the end result, a dynamic and re-energized SME scene. Businesses have to respond in new ways to the tight labor market, adopting shared services to save manpower, redesigning jobs, and giving workers broader responsibilities and rewarding them fairly. Indeed, in every sector, there are already examples of SMEs that stand out as having adopted these practices and are growing. Consumers, too, have to adjust. For instance, by getting used to self-serve or semi-serve models, and please, returning our trays, all of which are common in the F&B industry in many developed countries. In this budget, we will introduce a quality growth program, which is aimed at helping businesses to upgrade, create better jobs, and raise wages. The quality growth program has 4 pillars. First, tightening foreign worker policies. We will continue tightening our foreign worker policies through a targeted approach and considering the circumstances of each sector and each category of workers. Second, we will introduce a special 3-year package to support companies during this period of restructuring. We call it a 3-year transition support package. This will include a new wage credit scheme to encourage companies to share productivity gains with their workers through higher wages. Third, we will strengthen our schemes to help companies improve productivity and make it much easier for companies to tap on them. These measures will be focused not just on helping individual companies, but also on supporting industry-wide collaboration. Fourth pillar within the quality growth program, we will develop capabilities that will enable us to chart new frontiers in manufacturing, and to enable our services sector companies to seize opportunities in Asia's rapidly growing economies. Capabilities for new growth industries. The government will not be keeping the additional levies, the additional foreign worker levies that we receive as a result of the further tightening of foreign worker policies. We have in fact flowed back to companies the additional revenue that was collected since we began tightening in 2010. We flowed it back through the Productivity and Innovation Credit, or PIC scheme, the Special Employment Credit to help firms employ older workers, as well as various productivity grants and training subsidies. This will continue to be our approach over the next 3 years. Through new initiatives and enhancement of existing programs, we will channel all additional levies channel it back to businesses to help them upgrade and to share productivity gains with their workers. Let me first outline our measures to further moderate our demand for foreign workers. First, we will raise foreign worker levies across the board in July 2014 and July 2015. When I say across the board, everyone will see some increase, but the increases will vary by sector. Increases will be most significant in sectors where productivity growth is weak and the growth of the foreign workforce is significant. We will also take further measures to moderate foreign workforce growth in the construction, process, and marine sectors, as well as in the services sector. Let me deal with construction and process first. We will mandate the use of more manpower-efficient designs and technologies in building projects through increases in the minimum buildability scores. The government will take the lead and adopt even higher standards of buildability and constructability for public sector projects, which will yield significant productivity gains. Second, in construction, we will increase levies for less skilled work permit holders by $150 between July 2013 and July 2015. This is on top of the previous schedule of increases. Steeper levy increases of $300 will be imposed on workers hired outside a company's man-year entitlement, or MYE. We will not be making further cuts to the MYE in construction this year because by July 2013, we will already have made a significant cumulative reduction of 45%, a 45% cut in the MYE since 2010. This reduction applies to new projects undertaken over the next few years. The services sector. In addition to levy increases, we will reduce the overall dependency ratio ceiling and SPAS sub-DRC by 5 percentage points each in the services sector. Therefore, the overall DRC will come down from 45% to 40%, and the SPAS sub-DRC from 20% to 15%. For their existing workers, companies will be given 2 years, in fact, almost 2.5 years, until June 2015 to comply with the new DRCs. However, companies will not be allowed to bring in new foreign workers beyond the new DRCs from 1st July 2013. The DRC reductions will particularly affect services industries like F&B. As I've just explained, this is a painful but necessary step that we have to take in order to allow for market restructuring, to encourage innovations in the industry, and to grow stronger companies that can create good jobs and raise wages. However, to help firms in the services sector cope with labor constraints, MOM will allow more flexible deployment of foreign workers within a firm to raise productivity. Other sectors, such as cleaning, will not be significantly affected as most firms remain below the new 40% DRC. Together with the levy increases and programs like the Clean Mark accreditation scheme, the DRC cut will give a push towards higher productivity and wages in these sectors. Our healthcare sector is able to provide good quality care with low labor intensity. However, our healthcare manpower demands will increase as our population gets older. While we will continue to expand our local supply of healthcare manpower, we will still need a significant pool of foreign healthcare staff. In order to support the healthcare needs of Singaporeans, we will continue to ensure flexibility so that healthcare institutions are able to meet their staffing requirements. The marine sector. EDB and Spring are working with the key players in the marine sector to upgrade operations to improve not just labor productivity, but land productivity, and to focus their Singapore operations on higher value design and engineering activities. As part of this plan, we will reduce the overall DRC for the marine sector from the current DRC of 1:5 to 1:3.5. That's a very significant reduction in the DRC. This change will take place in 2 stages, from January 2016 and again from January 2018. SPASs. We will tighten the qualification criteria for all SPASs so as to moderate future growth and to ensure ample opportunities for career progression and wage growth for Singaporean mid-skilled and technical professionals. From 1st July 2013, we will increase the minimum SPAS qualifying monthly salary from $2,000 to $2,200. We will also introduce a tiered salary system based on age and qualifications of the applicant. Older and more experienced SPAS applicants will need to qualify at higher salaries. This will help level the playing field for our local workers in the same jobs and also nudge employers to bring in better caliber workers to raise the overall quality profile of SPAS holders. MOM will release more details of these changes in a separate press release. Let me now move on to employment passes, also an important issue. Our employment market for PMEs, professionals, managers, and executives, will evolve in the coming years. We will see progressively larger numbers of Singaporean university graduates entering the workforce. Our employment pass policy must ensure that firms in Singapore remain able to recruit the best teams, including both locals and foreigners, with the skills and expertise our companies need to compete internationally. At the same time, we must maintain a level playing field for Singaporeans with respect to jobs and progression opportunities. We will therefore make further calibrated adjustments in our policies. First, MOM will continue to tighten eligibility requirements for the employment pass workforce, especially for Q1 pass holders. That is the first tier within the employment pass market, the lower tier. This has already led in the last year to more foreign employees coming in within the SPAS category, which are subject to a DRC and levies. Second, for the longer term, MOM will put in place a framework to ensure that firms give fair consideration to Singaporeans in their hiring practices. MOM has been studying work pass policies in various developed countries. Some countries, for example, require companies to advertise job vacancies to locals before they can apply for a foreign work pass. Any such framework must enable companies to continue to meet their competitive needs so that they can provide Singaporean professionals ample opportunities to do well in their careers. This framework is not a matter to be rushed. MOM will consult closely with all stakeholders to develop a workable framework. This will be discussed further in MOM's Committee of Supply, together with the other key initiatives I have announced. To help businesses through this period of restructuring, we will provide significant government support through a 3-year transition support package. There are 3 components: a wage credit scheme, a PIC bonus, or productivity and innovation credit bonus, and a corporate income tax rebate. First, the wage credit scheme. Businesses will have to restructure in a tight labor market in the coming years, and wages will have to rise. Government will provide support to help businesses to raise their employees' wages. More importantly, this will incentivize employers to share productivity gains with their employees. To do this, we will introduce a wage credit scheme, or WCS. Under the WCS, the government will co-fund 40% of wage increases for Singaporean employees over the next 3 years. This co-funding will apply to wage increases for Singaporean employees earning up to a gross monthly wage of $4,000. The government will co-fund any increase in wages given to an employee in any year between 2013 and 2015 over his or her wage level in the preceding year. Co-funding will apply not just for that year, but for the rest of the period. So it's a 3-year co-funding package. Let me give an example. For instance, if an employer increases the gross monthly wage of his employee, I'll just wait for the slide to come on. If an employer increases the gross monthly wage of his employee by $200 in 2013, the government will pay 40% of the $200 wage increase, not just for 2013, but also for the remaining 2 years. So that's $80 for 3 years. If further $200 increases are given by the employer in 2014 and 2015, the government will co-fund 40% of the total wage increases of $400 and $600 in 2014 and 2015, respectively. So that's how the scheme works. There is no need to apply for the wage credit scheme. The wage credits will be automatically paid out to employers annually. We encourage all employers to take full advantage of the wage credit scheme to share productivity gains with workers. The wage credit scheme will cost the government about $3.6 billion over 3 years. Next, the PIC bonus that I just spoke about. We want as many businesses as possible to take advantage of the PIC scheme, the Productivity and Innovation Credit Scheme. We will hence introduce a PIC bonus as a second component of the transition support package. Businesses that invest a minimum of $5,000 per year, businesses that invest a minimum of $5,000 per year of assessment in PIC qualifying expenditure will receive a dollar-for-dollar matching cash bonus. This bonus will be for up to $15,000 over 3 years of assessment, over 3 years. Year of assessment 2013 to year of assessment 2015. This PIC bonus is paid over and above the existing PIC benefits. The $5,000 minimum qualifying expenditure encourages small businesses, including micro enterprises, to undertake meaningful productivity investments. Based on current claims, under the current existing PIC scheme, we expect that many firms will be able to benefit from the full $15,000 bonus. This is a $5,000 per year bonus, but $5,000 per year investment, but you can, if you spend up to $15,000, you get $1-for-$1 matching, and the government will give you $15,000 over 3 years. $15,000 can be spent in the first year, or it can be over 3 years. The PIC bonus is expected to cost $450 million over 3 years. Next, corporate taxes. Besides higher manpower costs, businesses also face other cost pressures, such as higher rentals. To help companies cope during this period of transition, I will provide a special corporate income tax rebate from year of assessment 2013 to year of assessment 2015. This is a 3-year rebate. I will give a rebate of 30% of tax payable up to $30,000 per year of assessment. This is expected to cost $1.3 billion over 3 years. We will also introduce 2 specific measures to help owners of commercial vehicles. Currently, when commercial vehicles reach the end of their 10-year COE, the owners can only renew for 5 years with no further extension, or they pay upfront for a 10-year extension. You can either get a 5-year extension without the possibility of renewing it beyond that 5 years, or you pay upfront for a full 10-year COE. We will allow owners to choose to renew. We will allow owners who choose to renew their COEs for 5 years in the first instance to extend their COEs further for another 5 years. This will ease their cash flow and provide flexibility. More details will be given by the Minister for Transport in MOT's COS. I will also grant a 1-year 30% road tax rebate for goods, vehicles, buses, and taxis. The rebate will take effect on 1st July 2013 and save businesses $46 million. I will now move on to the third major pillar of the Quality Growth Program, which comprises a significant enhancement of the productivity incentives that we have introduced since 2010. We have taken on board detailed feedback on how we can improve and strengthen our incentives to help businesses raise productivity. Taken together, these enhancements to our productivity incentives will involve additional government resources of about $500 million over 3 years. That's an additional $500 million over 3 years on top of what has been previously committed. The enhanced incentives will be at 3 levels of the economy. First, we will support initiatives for industry-wide collaboration that can either provide the scale that individual firms lack or enable best practices to be widely replicated. This will include collaborative industry projects, where consortia of firms will develop solutions to industry-specific productivity challenges. This consortia approach will be adopted in 7 new priority industries. A further initiative will foster SME collaborations with large enterprises so as to enable co-innovation, capability upgrading, and sharing of best practices within the supply chain. We will broaden and enhance the PACT scheme, which we initiated in the manufacturing sector, to other sectors. The second level concerns individual firms, a set of initiatives to help individual firms. I will make it much easier and faster for businesses to make PIC claims. Businesses and chambers, such as the Singapore Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry, have asked that we broaden the range of investments that can qualify for PIC benefits. Just to give 2 examples, restaurants will be able to claim for dishwashing machines, and contractors can claim for scissor lifts. We will also introduce a land productivity grant to support companies which intensify their use of land in Singapore. Help will also be given to those who choose to relocate some operations offshore, including to the immediate region, while retaining core functions in Singapore and saving land. This incentive was proposed by associations such as the Singapore Business Federation, SME Committee, or SMEC. Next, we will link up SMEs with public sector research institutions and private sector technology providers to identify and develop productivity solutions that give them a competitive advantage. This is an important new initiative as well, linking up our SMEs with research, science, and engineering capabilities available in our research institutes, as well as in private sector technology providers. To promote prefabrication and construction, we will set aside land for integrated construction and precast hubs and enhance grants to encourage their adoption in the industry. Thirdly, as part of these productivity incentives, we will provide a further boost to training for Singaporeans at all levels of the workforce. We will enhance the Workfare training support scheme for lower-wage Singaporeans, as well as programs to help PMEs to develop further expertise or to make mid-career switches. We will also launch an SME talent program developed by Spring, together with the industry chambers and trade associations. The program will provide awards to encourage polytechnic and ITE students to join our SMEs upon graduation. We will also top up the Lifelong Learning Endowment Fund by $500 million. Lastly, we will improve the accessibility of government support schemes for our SMEs. All our government support schemes, we will try to streamline them, improve their efficiency, and make them as business-friendly as we possibly can. Among other things, Spring will enhance the enterprise development centers into one-stop integrated SME centers. Details of these initiatives will be shared during the Committee of Supply of MTI, MOM, and MND. We're working industry by industry with business associations and individual firms to help them adopt customized solutions that will help them reduce costs, develop economies of scale, and raise productivity and wages. I will describe briefly how this is being done, this industry by industry approach, by using the F&B industry as an example. Spring is working with the industry to help companies adopt wireless technologies, move towards using more central kitchens, or an example in today's Straits Times of centralized dishwashing, and to collaborate more closely with food manufacturers. We are helping the industry to tap into a pool of part-time manpower and also adopt manpower scheduling systems that many SMEs have found can lead to much more efficient deployment of employees. In addition, we are also helping promising SME firms develop their brands and to expand overseas. There are already many examples of F&B establishments that are changing the way businesses are run, using technology and new management methods, like Pasta Mania and Mr. Bean, two well-known local brands. Pasta Mania had its roots in a food court. I think it had 2 stalls, and has now grown to over 40 outlets in 5 countries. It pioneered mobile app ordering in the F&B industry, relies heavily on part-time staff, and invests in their training. Mr. Bean started in People's Park Food Centre, as some of you will remember, and has now grown to 70 outlets in 6 countries. Old product. It too has made significant productivity improvements. It is also collaborating with various voluntary welfare organizations to provide training and employment to Singaporeans with special needs. What we're doing in the F&B industry, we're also doing for retail establishments and hotels. There's much work ahead. Deep dives to understand the industry well and to work with firms to better cope in a tight labor market. Restructuring our economy is also about looking ahead for new growth opportunities. We have to keep developing new capabilities so that we stay relevant in the world and create higher value industries and high quality jobs for Singaporeans. The global manufacturing landscape is being redefined by disruptive technologies such as robotics and 3D printing, and business models involving mass customization and use of manufacturing analytics. We must keep up with these developments to ensure that Singapore remains a key global center for advanced manufacturing. EDB will set aside $500 million over the next 5 years to support a future of manufacturing plan. We will work with key industry partners, our universities, polytechnics, and research institutes to testbed new technologies and develop applications that can be commercialized and tapped on by our firms, including our SMEs. This has the potential to create a range of new jobs for Singaporeans in future, such as high-skilled robot operators and material scientists. We will also support the emerging satellite industry in Singapore through a $90 million Satellite Industry Development Fund. In the services sector, the rapid rise of middle-class consumers and dynamic enterprises in Asia is boosting demand for modern, high-value services. That's what we can be good at. Our companies, particularly in the professional services industries, are well positioned to ride this wave of demand. Data analytics is one such industry cluster that we are developing. We aim to develop a pool of 2,500 analytics professionals over the next 5 years to support this new area through programs such as NTU's recently launched Business Analytics degree. Infrastructure development is another such cluster, huge demand in Asia. We are bringing together expertise and players from across the infrastructure value chain in Singapore, from project developers to EPC players, engineering, procurement, and construction players, and financiers. For example, the World Bank's investment arm, the IFC, will be setting up its first asset management company outside Washington, D.C., in Singapore, to invest in infrastructure projects in the region and work together with players across the value chain I was describing. We will also help SMEs who are expanding their overseas footprint by mitigating the risks inherent in such ventures. In addition to the political risk insurance scheme introduced last year, IE Singapore is working with ADB and private insurers to expand the ADB's trade finance program for Singapore exporters. This will provide credit guarantees to facilitate exports by our companies. I will also take the opportunity to make a few other tax-related changes. We will refine tax incentives for companies in the maritime sector and the financial sector to ensure the continued growth of high-value activities in Singapore. I won't go through the details, but they are in the annex to the budget speech. Investment holding companies or property development companies incorporated after 25th February 2013, after today, will be excluded from the start-up tax exemption. Investment holding companies derive passive incomes, while firms in the real estate industry typically incorporate a company for each new property development. The start-up tax exemption for encouraging entrepreneurship is really not intended for such firms. These companies, such entities, these companies can still enjoy the partial tax exemption available generally to all companies. Benefits in kind, such as housing or hotel accommodation and furniture and fittings, that are provided in the housing premises are taxable as part of employment income. The current way of taxing housing and hotel accommodation has remained unchanged since the 1960s and undervalues the actual benefits received by the employees. To tax such employment perquisites more equitably, housing and hotel accommodation provided to employees will be taxed based on the annual value of the property and actual cost of the hotel accommodation incurred by employers respectively. The changes will take effect from year of assessment 2015. Finally, we will take the final step to harmonize the tax rates between cigarette and non-cigarette tobacco products, which we started 2 years ago. This has been my passion, if you recall. I will raise the excise duties for BDs, Anghun, and smokeless tobacco by 25%, from $239 per kilogram to $299 per kilogram, and unmanufactured tobacco by 1.5%, from $347 per kilogram to $352 per kilogram. Madam Speaker, let me move on to the second major thrust of the budget, which is about making our society even more inclusive. We have two key concerns. First, income inequality and the risk that it poses to social cohesion. We have to take further steps to ameliorate inequality and give every Singaporean a chance, a real chance, to do well and have a fulfilling life. We have a special challenge in inequality, a special challenge that stems from the fact that our education system and economy have been completely transformed over the last 40 years. Many in our present-day generation, our present-day older generation of Singaporeans had very little education. Barely half were able to go beyond primary school. Their pay was very low in the first few decades of development. Younger Singaporeans have benefited from vastly improved opportunities in education, with the bulk of them going on to tertiary study. As a result, a disproportionate number of middle and high-paying jobs are taken up by younger Singaporeans, while older Singaporeans, those aged above 55, make up more than 40% of workers in the bottom fifth of the income ladder. Older Singaporeans make up more than 40% of workers in the bottom 20% of the income ladder. Our schemes to help low-income workers therefore pay special regard to our older Singaporeans. Second, we want to do more for our retirees. As they depend on their savings to finance daily expenses, they are the most affected by rising costs. Many worry about being a burden to their children. We must provide our seniors with a greater sense of security in their retirement years. Our social strategies are shaped by these two key concerns of Singaporeans, which are key priorities for government. 20 years ago, we could get by with very little government social support, apart from public assistance, apart from the PA scheme. We were a young nation then, incomes were rising rapidly across the board, and the elderly had more children to support them. However, as our society matures and our incomes rise more slowly and more unequally, we have to step up our social support. We took significant steps in last year's budget. This year, we will put in place further initiatives as part of our commitment to build a more inclusive society. There are 4 pillars to our strategy. First, we must do all we can to promote social mobility. It is still an important feature of our education system today, still an important result of our education system today. However, as all societies have found, social mobility becomes increasingly difficult to sustain beyond the first few generations who benefit from a good education system. To make a difference, we must start earlier in a child's life, from the preschool level. We must find new and innovative ways to support children with disadvantages as they grow up in our primary schools and beyond. Start early in preschool, find new ways to intervene and help them, and also continue the interventions as they grow up through our primary schools and beyond. Second, the second pillar of our social strategies. We must continue to provide good job opportunities and grow incomes for all Singaporeans. This is fundamental to achieving a stable and cohesive society, here and everywhere else in the world. Indeed, better jobs and higher incomes are still the foremost concerns of Singaporeans. This is why the restructuring of our economy so that we can grow incomes and give Singaporeans a sense of fulfillment in their jobs is an essential part of our strategy for a better society. Third, we need to redistribute. We need to redistribute to benefit our lower and middle income groups. We must maintain a progressive system of taxes and benefits and preserve a sense of fairness, even as we ensure that our economy remains competitive. Everyone contributes something to Singapore, but the bulk of our taxes is paid by the high income group and most of the benefits received by the lower income group. And everyone must feel they belong to a thriving and cohesive society. In this budget, we will add to the progressivity of our system, including enhancing Workfare significantly to help older workers. We are also reinforcing our social safety nets. We are charting new directions to ensure healthcare remains affordable for older Singaporeans. We are also improving on the way we deliver social services to bring support closer to the home and to better meet the needs of individual families. We will provide some support in this budget to cushion the impact of rising costs on Singaporeans, especially our older folk. The fourth pillar, and a critical one for a vibrant society, is the role of the community. The government will provide strong support for community initiatives by partnering with community bodies and groups of citizens to improve the lives of Singaporeans. There's already a growing number of such bright spots of goodness, like the collaboration between Lian Foundation and Care Corner launched just a few days ago to help underprivileged preschoolers, or the house-to-house health screening and counseling program that was launched in 2007 by a small group of medical students led by Tan Chong Kiat. He was then a second-year student, and it has now grown to 400 students doing house-to-house visits in Jurong, Macpherson, and Bukit Merah, doing health screening, doing the tests, and providing counseling, and trying to follow up with the older residents. In this budget, we will take further initiatives to support opportunities for low and middle income pupils in our education system. Over the past 5 years, we have significantly increased financial assistance for students of all ages, especially for those from lower and middle income families. We have enhanced preschool subsidies so that those from the bottom 20% of households only pay $10 a month for childcare. We have expanded the MOE Financial Assistance Scheme benefits in schools and provide low-income students with breakfast to start their school day well. We have also increased our bursaries for lower and middle income students, not just the low income students, but the middle income students when they go on to university, polytechnic, and ITE. Preschools. Together with the significant enhancements to childcare and infant care subsidies that the government announced in January, we will more than double our spending on the preschool sector over the next 5 years to over $3 billion. We're expanding capacity so that preschools will be available closer to homes in all our neighborhoods, as well as closer to workplaces. Second, to ensure quality and affordable preschools, we will bring more operators onto the Anchor Operator Scheme. We will provide 16,000 additional places in Anchor Operators by 2017. Third, good teachers. They are the key to a quality preschool sector. We will increase salary grants to the Anchor Operators so that all their preschool teachers will be graduates or diploma holders, up from 80% today. We will also provide preschool providers across the sector with greater support in curriculum and teaching guides. Teachers will also be able to obtain scholarships and training grants to upgrade and look forward to a more structured training and career development. This applies across the sector. Fourth, MOE will work on distilling best practices that have the potential to scale across the sector. MOE will on its own also set up a few kindergartens to develop best practices to be part of this effort to catalyze improvements. And fifth, our fifth initiative as part of developing the preschool sector is to establish a new autonomous agency, the Early Childhood Development Agency, to drive improvements across the entire preschool sector. The new agency will combine the preschool teams within MOE and MSF and will be overseen by both ministries. MOE and MSF will elaborate on these initiatives at the COS. Our next set of initiatives for social mobility is at the school level. They will help students with a disadvantage to catch up and better build a foundation to do well later in life. First, we will extend the Learning Support Program, which is currently for Primary 1 and 2. It is resource intensive because the classes are conducted in small groups of less than 10 students, but it is effective. Our experience has shown that early intervention helps, but also that continuous intervention is necessary to reinforce what has been achieved. We will therefore extend the learning support beyond the early primary school years. The programs will require about 600 additional teachers who will be specially trained. Second initiative at the school level, we will significantly expand the number of school-based student care centers, this is after school care, to take advantage of the move to single-session primary schools. These centers can play a useful role in providing additional development support to students outside school hours. The widespread provision of after-school care, together with enhanced subsidies that we introduced last year, will also be helpful to working parents. Third, MOE will develop richer instructional materials to enhance teaching and learning in every school. One important initiative is to develop online resources that include the best lessons, especially on difficult concepts, taught by experienced teachers and specialists. This is a new way in which we can support our goal of enabling every school to be a good school with equal access to the best teaching resources. All in, these 3 school-level initiatives will cost an additional $120 million each year. In addition, we will put another $72 million into the Opportunity Fund. Schools with a larger number of students from less advantaged backgrounds will receive up to $275,000 for secondary school and $150,000 for a primary school. This is 40% up from today's Opportunity Funds. We will also be extending the Opportunity Fund to the polytechnics for the first time. We already have it for schools and ITEs, and we will now extend it to the polytechnics. In total, this is expected to benefit about 100,000 students. The Minister for Education will provide more details at the COS. Furthermore, I will make a $300 million top-up to the EduSave Endowment Fund, which is used to help all our students develop as well-rounded individuals. Let me move on to talk about the further steps we are taking to make our fiscal system more progressive. First, Workfare. We will make the following enhancements to the Workfare Income Supplement, or WIS, starting from work done from 1st January 2013. First, we will expand the coverage of Workfare to workers earning a monthly wage of up to $1,900 per month. This is an increase of $200 from the current $1,700 ceiling. WIS will benefit about 480,000 Singaporeans, or 30% of our citizen workforce. Second, we will increase WIS payouts significantly for workers aged 45 years and older. We will increase WIS payouts significantly for all those who receive WIS. For those who are aged 45 years and older, the maximum payout for a low-income worker earning $1,000 will increase by $700. The maximum payout will increase by $700. Those aged between 35 and 45 years old will get a smaller increase. The enhanced Workfare scheme will mean increases of between 25% to 50% in maximum payouts. Third, we will increase the proportion of cash in the WIS payout. Our unionists have made a strong call for this, so as to help recipients with their immediate expenses. Workers will now receive 40% of WIS in cash and 60% in CPF. Previously, recipients received 29% in cash. With the higher WIS payouts, even with more being paid in cash, workers will still receive more WIS top-ups to their CPF accounts. We will channel more to their MediSave and special accounts equally. Taken as a whole, this is a significant boost to the Workfare scheme. I'll take an example. A 60-year-old cleaner at the bottom 10th percentile of incomes, earning $1,000 a month, will get $3,500 in WIS annually. This is equivalent to 3.5 months of additional income, or a 29% top-up on top of his normal pay, almost a 30% top-up on top of his normal pay. Of this, $1,400, of the $3,500, $1,400 will be paid in cash, which is more than $100 a month. Both his healthcare and retirement savings will also receive a boost. We will also tighten the WIS criteria to ensure that they are focused on low-income households. There are some WIS recipients who own second properties or have spouses who are fairly well off. These individuals would be better off and are not the target of the WIS scheme. We will thus implement additional eligibility criteria for WIS to exclude those with a spouse earning more than $70,000 per year and individuals or couples owning a second property. Only a small percentage of current WIS recipients fall into this category, but it is best that we make the refinements now as we are significantly enhancing the WIS. In total, the enhancements we are making to WIS will bring its annual cost to $650 million, which is about 44% higher than last year's bill. We will also be enhancing the Workfare training scheme, which I mentioned earlier, which the Acting Minister for Manpower will elaborate on during the COS. With increase in WIS payouts, we will also be able to raise employer and employee CPF contribution rates for low-wage workers without a reduction in take-home pay for most of them. Their CPF contribution rates were reduced in 2007 to enhance their employability. Since then, We have put in place schemes such as the Special Employment Credit for older workers and the Workfare training scheme, which has improved their employability. We will therefore restore the employer contribution rates fully to the same level as for higher income workers at the same age group from 1st January 2014. We will also bring the employee contribution rates for most of these workers to the normal levels. The increased CPF will help them with their retirement and medical needs without, as I mentioned, reducing the take-home pay of most of the workers. Take, for example, a 45-year-old earning $800 a month, which is even lower than the bottom 10%, the 10th percentile. His employer contribution rate will be restored from just below 11% currently to 16% from next year. In other words, it's a full restoration. And his employee contribution rate from 16.5% to 20%. As a result, he will now save $15,000 more in his CPF by age 65. He's 45 years now. In 20 years' time, as a result of these changes, he will have $15,000 more in his CPF. The revisions we are making will also make it easier for employers to calculate the CPF they need to contribute for most workers, as their CPF contribution rates will be the same, regardless of whether they're low income or higher income. The increase in CPF in employer contribution rates is expected to cost employers $83 million in 2013. We will also increase the MediSave contribution rates for self-employed persons earning net trade income of between $6,000 and $18,000 per annum. Let me now move on to the tax measures. When we eliminated estate duties, I highlighted that we would retain property tax as a means of taxing wealth. Unlike estate duty, the burden of which was felt most significantly by the middle and upper middle income groups rather than the rich, property taxes can be structured more equitably, with the rich paying the most. Property tax cannot be avoided through tax planning. 3 years ago, I introduced a progressive property tax structure. Last year, I also signaled that this would be a way in which we can increase the progressivity of our tax system going forward. A more progressive property tax allows us to achieve greater social equity without hurting our economic competitiveness or reducing the incentives for enterprise. It is what economists call an efficient tax. With this budget, I will increase property tax rates for high-end residential properties, the largest increases being for investment properties. In other words, high-end investment properties, those that are not owner-occupied. First, I will increase property tax rates for the high end of owner-occupied residential properties, while lowering tax rates on the majority of owner-occupied residential properties. In other words, I will make the tax schedule for property tax more progressive. Higher tax rates at the high end and lower tax rates for the majority. This is fair. The property tax is a wealth tax and is applied irrespective of whether a property is lived in, vacant, or rented out. Those who live in the most expensive homes should pay more property taxes than others. It's extremely important to understand this. It's not a tax on income from rent, it's a wealth tax based on the value of your property. And those with the most expensive properties, those whose properties are the highest value, should pay more. I'm especially mindful of the fact, however, that we have retirees who do not have significant cash resources, even if the homes they live in may be of significant value. The new property tax schedule for owner-occupied residential properties will ensure that most retirees end up paying less property tax. Currently, property tax rates for owner-occupied residential property are 0%, 4%, and 6%, depending on the annual values of the properties. I will widen the 0% property tax band, which currently applies to the first $6,000 of annual value. I will widen it to $8,000. In addition to the current 4% and 6% tax rates, I will introduce new property tax rates of between 8% to 16%. The widening of the 0% property tax band, which is the first part, the lowest tax bracket, the widening of the 0% property tax band will enable 950,000 owner-occupied residential properties to enjoy some tax savings. All 1- and 2-room owner-occupied HDB flats will continue to pay no property tax. Homes with annual values of $12,000, such as a 5-room HDB flat, will experience tax savings of $80 or 33% of their current property tax bill. These savings for the majority of homes will mean a reduction in the government's property tax revenue of $44 million. The top 1% of owner-occupied residential properties, or 12,000 properties, will face increased taxes, contributing an additional $25 million. However, the increase will be small, except for those at the very top end. A landed property in the central area with an annual value of $150,000, which is top end, will see an increase in property tax of $5,000, a little over $5,000 per year. In other words, they would have previously paid about $7,400, and they will now pay about $12,600. The result of this more progressive property tax for owner-occupied residential properties is a net revenue loss to government of about $19 million once fully implemented. However, I will apply more significant increases to tax rates for high-end investment properties. Currently, for residential properties that are not owner-occupied, the property tax rate is a flat 10%. I will introduce new marginal tax rates of 12% to 20% for these investment properties. What this will mean, in effect, is an increase in property taxes paid for non-owner-occupied residential properties with annual values above $30,000. These residential properties belong to the top 1/3 of all non-owner-occupied residential properties, or the top half of such private residential properties. So this is the top third of the investment property market that will have to end up paying somewhat more taxes. The increase will only be significant for investment properties at the high end. Most suburban condominiums will only see a very small increase in property tax of about $100 to $300 per year, a tiny fraction of the rental income. Residential properties with annual values of about $70,000, such as many condominiums in the central area, will face a $1,500 tax increase. A high-end property, such as a landed property in the central area with annual value of $150,000, will see an increase in property tax of $9,000 per year. In other words, they were previously paying $15,000 and they will now pay $24,000 per year. These changes in property tax rates for non-owner occupied residential properties will increase revenues by about $72 million per year once fully implemented. The revised progressive property tax structure is fair. It will be phased in over 2 years from 1st January 2014. The revised rates will take full effect from 1st January 2015. Property tax rates for non-residential properties remain unchanged at a flat 10%. Property tax is a tax on property ownership, as I mentioned earlier, and should be levied irrespective of whether the property is vacant or occupied. For consistency and equity in tax treatment, I will remove the current concession, which provides tax refunds on vacant properties. This is fair, especially as we are now introducing a new and more progressive property tax schedule on residential properties. The changes will take effect from 1st January 2014, and the details are in the annex. I shall now move on to the vehicle tax system. Today, all cars incur the same ARF, additional registration fee, at 100% of their open market value. I will make the vehicle tax system more progressive by introducing a tiered ARF structure for passenger cars and taxis. The ARF for car models with OMVs up to $20,000 will remain at the current 100%. I will introduce 2 more tiers for more expensive cars. The next $30,000 of OMV, beyond the first $20,000, will attract an ARF rate of 140%. Any value beyond $50,000 will attract an ARF rate of 180%. With the new ARF structure, a sedan with an OMV of about $18,000, like a Mazda 3, will see no change in ARF rates. A car with an OMV of $45,000, like an Audi A5, will incur $10,000 or 22% more ARF, while a luxury model with an OMV of $74,000, like a BMW 735, will face a 42% increase in ARF payable. The PAF rebate, the Preferential Additional Registration Fee rebate, will remain unchanged as a proportion of the ARF paid. The tiered ARF structure will apply to vehicles registered with COEs obtained from the first COE bidding exercise in March 2013 onwards. This will contribute about $150 million in additional revenue annually. I will now turn to our initiatives to strengthen the social safety net so that we provide more support for families in need. First, healthcare. Our system of government medical subsidies and the 3 M's provides universal healthcare coverage with multiple layers of protection. There's significant government subsidies across all settings, outpatient, acute, and long-term care. Last year, we significantly increased subsidies for middle-income Singaporeans in long-term care. Whilst we have co-payments to reduce overconsumption, we also have MediSave and MediShield. MediSave ensures that Singaporeans have savings for their own and their families' healthcare needs. MediShield, our national healthcare insurance scheme, covers large medical bills. The third and final M is MediFund, which ensures that no one will be denied any treatment that he needs. Over the last 5 years, we have expanded MediFund to benefit more patients, including those from middle-income families. However, our approach to healthcare financing has to evolve. As our society gets older, we will see higher demand for quality care, longer life expectancy, and a rising incidence of chronic diseases. Families will also get smaller over time, and we will have more singles without family support when they are in their silver years. We have hence embarked on a thorough review of our healthcare financing system, as the Minister for Health has earlier indicated. This should seek to provide greater peace of mind for all Singaporeans while ensuring that our healthcare system remains sustainable. The review will look at all components of our healthcare financing framework. First, although overall healthcare expenditure will go up, we want to see Singaporeans' out-of-pocket share of medical costs fall, and the government take on a larger share. We will target help at those who need it the most. But we will also want to ensure that the needs of the middle-income group are met. Second, we want to broaden insurance coverage by expanding risk pooling so that as a society, we support those who require more help. We must, however, be careful about how this affects premiums. Third, we must study how to increase the role of MediSave so it can be used to meet more healthcare needs while ensuring sustainability of savings. Fourth, we will do more for those who need help with their medical expenses by expanding the use of MediFund, which, as I mentioned earlier, also applies now to the middle-income group. Finally, we will help Singaporeans stay healthy by increasing our investments in health promotion and preventive care so all individuals are encouraged to stay healthy. This is a major review. We are studying the strengths and weaknesses of other countries' healthcare systems. We will have to consider the options carefully and consult broadly with Singaporeans. We want to do better for today's generation of Singaporeans and do it in a way that is fair and sustainable for the next generation. The Minister for Health will elaborate on these directions at the Committee of Supply. In the meantime, in this year's budget, we will introduce further support to meet Singaporeans' healthcare needs. We will expand the current Seniors Mobility Fund into a Seniors Mobility and Enabling Fund, which will cover a much wider range of assistive devices, like hearing aids, shower chairs, and motorized wheelchairs. These devices are a great boon to our seniors and help them stay active and independent. Many frail elderly living at home are also concerned with the cost of consumables, such as milk feeds and diapers, adult diapers, which can be a costly burden. We will provide subsidies of up to 80% to the lower income elderly, to help defray the cost of consumables. For example, an elderly patient in need of milk feeds can save up to $2,000 per year. We will also top up the fund from the existing $10 million to $50 million. Medifund, we have expanded Medifund to benefit many more patients. I will top up Medifund by $1 billion, bringing the total fund size to $4 billion. I will top up the Elder Care Fund by $250 million this year to support patients tapping on subsidized nursing homes and other long-term care services. This will bring the total size of the fund to $3 billion. We will also enhance the Public Assistance Scheme, which provides a basic level of financial assistance to those who are permanently unable to work. The monthly cash assistance for households will be raised to help recipients meet their daily needs. For example, a couple will now receive an additional $90, making up $790 in cash assistance. A recipient in a single-person household will receive $450 in cash. I say cash because PA recipients will continue to receive other free services like medical treatment in polytechnics and our restructured hospitals, primary and secondary school education, in our polyclinics and restructured hospitals, primary and secondary school education, and access to a broad range of social services such as home help and day activity centers. This is over and on top of the cash benefits that they receive. We will also introduce more flexibility to support recipients who need to incur other expenses. To help government pensioners who draw lower pensions, the government will increase the Singapore allowance and monthly pension ceiling by $20 per month to $280 and $1,210 respectively. This will benefit about 10,000 pensioners. I will inject a further $200 million into the ComCare Fund, which is very well utilized. I will also give an additional $10 million grant to the self-help groups to help them enhance their programs over the next 2 years. A further aspect of the social safety net that we are strengthening concerns how we deliver social services. We want citizen-centered social support services that are more integrated so that everyone who needs help can get it conveniently and need not go to different agencies. To achieve this, there are three main initiatives that we are embarking on in this budget. First, we will introduce about 20 social service offices in HDB towns over the next few years. A needy family can apply for help at a social service office nearer their home and benefit from better coordination of government and community help in the local area. The second initiative is to integrate elder care services. As we scale up support to meet the needs of a growing elderly population, we will integrate the aged care services of the CEL, the Center for Enabled Living, and the Agency for Integrated Care, the AIC. We will integrate it under one roof at AIC. The new AIC will be the single agency that helps the elderly and their caregivers to get easier access to both medical and social care services in the community. Thirdly, MSF will at the same time strengthen its focus on persons with disabilities with an agency dedicated to the disabled. This will serve as a focal point for all their needs. The Acting Minister for Social and Family Development and the Minister for Health will provide more details on these improvements in social service delivery at the COS. This year's budget will provide some direct assistance to households to help them cope with increases in the cost of living. We introduced the permanent GST voucher scheme last year to help lower and middle income households. The typical lower income household receives $740 in GSTV cash and USave. A typical retiree household receives in addition $500 in GSTV Medisave, making up a total of $1,240. This year, to help households facing cost of living pressures, I will provide an extra GST voucher on top of the permanent voucher. In other words, all eligible Singaporeans will get double the usual amount. This will benefit approximately 1.4 million Singaporeans and cost the government an extra $680 million. We will also provide 1 to 3 months of Service and Conservancy Charges rebates, SNCC rebates. 1 to 2 room HDB households will receive a total of 3 months of rebates for this year, while 3 and 4 room households will receive 2 months of rebates. This will cost the government $77 million. To help older Singaporeans with their healthcare expenses, I will provide a $200 top-up to the CPF Medisave accounts of all Singaporeans aged 45 and above. A $200 top-up to Medisave for all Singaporeans aged 45 and above. The top-ups will benefit 1.5 million Singaporeans and cost the government $300 million. I will provide a personal income tax rebate this year for all taxpayers, with a larger rebate for those who are 60 years and above. The rebate will be for the year of assessment 2013, in other words, for income earned in 2012. I will extend a rebate of 30%, subject to a cap of $1,500 for taxpayers who are below 60 years old. 30% rebate up to a cap of $1,500 for those who are below 60. I will also introduce a higher rebate for those who are older. Those aged 60 or above will receive a rebate of 50%, subject to the same $1,500 cap. Having this cap of $1,500 allows us to provide the greatest benefits to those at the 80th percentile and below of taxpayers. 1.3 million resident taxpayers will benefit. This will cost the government $615 million. Maid levies. Families with Singaporean dependents, such as children, elderly parents, or family members with disabilities, currently pay a concessionary levy of $170 for a foreign domestic worker, instead of the normal levy of $265. Our aim is to reduce costs for these families. We will hence reduce henceforth the concessionary foreign domestic worker levy from $170 to $120 per month. This is not a temporary scheme, but a change for now and for the future. This will mean that a family will save an additional $600 each year. This change is expected to cost the government an additional $73 million a year and will take effect from 1st March 2013. When we established the permanent GST voucher scheme last year, we set aside $3.6 billion to finance the scheme until fiscal year 2016. To underscore our commitment to help offset what our lower income Singaporeans pay in GST, I will top up the GST voucher fund by another $3 billion. This will ensure sufficient funds for the government to make the yearly GST voucher payouts up to fiscal year 2020. The direct assistance measures that I've just announced will provide significant assistance to Singaporeans with the cost of living. Let me give you an example. First, our elderly. They will receive the most help. A typical retiree couple living in a 3-room flat will receive a total of $1,800 in special transfers and tax savings. Including the permanent GSTV, they will receive more than $3,000 in benefits. Of this $3,000, $1,400 will go into their MediSave. A typical middle-income family living in, say, a 4-room flat will also benefit from about $530 in special transfers and about $730 in tax savings from the personal income tax rebate, as well as changes to the property tax schedule and the foreign domestic worker concessionary levy. Including the permanent GSTV, they will get a total of about $1,500. So that's for a middle-income family. Madam Speaker, let me now summarize this year's budget position. I will start with a basic balance. We expect a modest basic surplus of $0.3 billion for fiscal year 2013, after factoring in the various tax rebates and the transition support package. This basic surplus takes into account the balance of our operating revenues and expenditures, but excludes the amounts that we are setting aside in our endowment and trust funds for the future. It also does not factor in the net investment returns contribution, or NIRC, from past reserves. The basic balance measures the direct impact of the budget for the coming year on the economy. At 0.1% of GDP, this is close to a balanced budget and reflects a neutral fiscal stance. I'll go on now to the overall budget balance. This includes an estimated revenue from NRIC, the income from our reserves, of $7.7 billion. It also takes into account the $5.6 billion in top-ups we are making to endowment and trust funds for the future, including the GST voucher fund and the $200 million we are setting aside for the new cultural donation matching fund to encourage private donations to arts and culture. The resulting overall budget balance for fiscal year 2013 is projected to be a surplus of $2.4 billion, or 0.7% of GDP. So just to reiterate, the basic balance, which measures the impact of the impact of the budget on the economy, is very close to a neutral position. But when we take into consideration our NRIC revenues, and we take into consideration what we are putting aside for the future, we will end up with a small surplus of 0.7% of GDP. Madam Speaker, this budget is for a better Singapore. We will fix our problems in housing and transport. We are transforming our economy so that we can have quality growth that will provide all Singaporeans a better quality of life. And we are taking further steps towards a more inclusive society, starting with our children, helping lower income workers, and providing better lives for our retirees. But our policies will ultimately succeed by building on the strengths of Singaporeans, the skills and mastery in every job, the compassion, the sense of collective responsibility, and the belief in this country. Singaporeans who are in their own ways building a better tomorrow for themselves, their families, and for Singapore. Like Ali Marzuki Abdul Rani, his father passed away when he was 18, he was determined to succeed and to support his younger siblings. Got bursary support to see him through NTU, and is now doing well as a project engineer, and also giving back to society. He mentors and coaches young students. Or like Madam Yo Hui Im, 58, a former factory operator. She found a job in a cafe. She was not English speaking. She decided to go for English lessons at age 58 in order to play a bigger role in her workplace. She's now a team leader with broader responsibilities and better pay. Or like Alfred Yeo, young accountant, hearing and speech impaired, although he keeps telling me, please call me deaf, he tells me. He prefers to be called deaf. He is a tireless source of feedback on public transport and cycling paths, using photos, using emails, using even videos he takes himself. 3 Singaporeans, but there are many others like them. They each tell us something about our strengths and about why we will have a better Singapore ahead. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.